yours were.
Yeah. So religions often have congregations. Do you think atheism has the same kind of community? If I could just follow up reason for this. So my partner's cousin, he grew up in a religious household. His mom is a minister, and when he went to university, decided wasn't religious anymore, became atheist. But he really missed the congregational aspect of going to church. So
Mhm.
he's actually in like a non-religious congregation where they meet every Sunday and just like have a sing of pop songs and like talk about something that's happened this week or something, and then all go away again, which I think is a really nice idea.
Yeah, I
And
love
sort
that.
of sort of imitates that community feel that many religions have.
Yeah, I don't think that's common. I think that most of the atheist community is online, and that a lot of the atheist community is, to a certain extent, toxic. In that it's people that are driven by their atheist views. Large part are people who have come from very oppressive religious backgrounds, usually in America, and they have like almost like a chip on their shoulder about, well, a justified chip on their shoulder about wanting to break that system so that other people don't have to endure what they endured, you know. And I think that that is a very different type of atheism to what I have been through. Um, I Yeah, I don't think it's very common. I think the closest thing you get is humanism. Secular humanism is probably the closest thing to like a kind of like organized group thing like that. And there are loads of secular humanism societies around the country and stuff. The problem I have with them is I've recently joined up to the South London one, and the emails are very much about I'll make sure you tick no religion on the census. There's this human rights issue in somewhere in the Middle East about people atheists being treated or non-believers being treated in a horrible way. There's this and that, and that's all really important stuff, but that doesn't replicate the same community value stuff that you're talking about. It's more about that bigger stuff. So even that, I think, is kind of like it's geared towards justifying our existence rather than engaging as a community, and I think
Yeah,
that needs to change.
yeah. Humanist communities I've found tend to be quite, like you say, they're almost identity forward. You know, they're
Mhm.
still trying to like. I think they have this feeling that they don't have a sort of recognized officialdom, and so they are kind of pushing to make themselves more commonly known. And I think maybe sometimes the sort of the pastoral side of it, the actual kind of like the benefits of a local community like that, often get lost in the mix.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's the problem I'm having at the moment with atheism as an idea is the kind of ideological gatekeeping that is happening with it. That you have to have a certain level of analytical skills to be able to access it, if that makes sense. And I think that isn't helped by secular humanism, because that's what they're talking about. They're talking about this ideological stuff rather than talking about how, as somebody who doesn't believe, can you live a really nice life. Which is what churches do, I think. I've been to church a few times. I used to go a lot when I was younger, and that's the thing. That's the message that they're saying. How can you live a good life as somebody who is religious? And that's what we need as atheists. I think we need less people fighting religion and more people talking about, well, what does it mean to actually be non-religious and have a meaningful life. So
I think a lot of atheist communities as well focus on being atheist.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Something Izzy said though really made me think about this, because atheists have been oppressed for for thousands of centuries, yeah, right up until the Enlightenment, really. And then it's only recently been accepted in the West, and then there's still places that have the death penalty for like apostasy and stuff like that in other countries, certain countries. So it's still it's kind of like there's been this oppression that's happened about being non-religious or not following the religion of the state. And Izzy was saying that it's, and these are her words as a mixed race woman, it's almost like how black people can't have an existence in the West without referring to white people currently, without referring to that oppression of white people. And I kind of get that. Like maybe that's why atheists are so fixed on being anti-religious and stuff, is because they're trying to justify their position and build their identity based on the oppression of the past.
Yeah, they're kind of building as part of their, like, the nucleus of their group is the fact that they are not this other thing. So they're
exactly.
They're defining themselves through religion, albeit in a state of opposition.
Yeah.
So they're still seeking legitimacy.
Yeah.
I mean, I've found that in a lot of churches that there is cliques and there's faults, and if anyone says my church is perfect, turn around and run away. Because
it's a cult.
It's no one on earth is perfect, and therefore you can't have a perfect community. And there's so many churches that get it wrong. And in fact, some of the best communities out there are gangs. As I was reading
That's an interesting thought. Yeah.
I was reading a book by an American pastor called Letters to the Church, and it's saying the church needs to be more like a gang, because in a gang you have each other's back no matter what. You always meet up and you enjoy each other's company, and it's kind of how far.
Can we leave out the bit where if you leave, you kill them, though? Can we leave that bit out?
That's the main bit, Luke.
Yeah,
Left my gang, I have to kill you.
I think, it is one of the best community feelings. As I've never been in a gang, but from what I've seen,
yeah.
but it's that factor of community and relying on each other. And so many churches get it wrong. So there's so many people that get hurt by the church because it's impossible to be perfect. And some people, through their own fault, and I've probably done it, is driven people away from the church, coming across wrong or coming across thinking that they're right when they're not. It's really tough.
And I guess is that difficult when people move between churches as well, even between like the same denomination? So if somebody goes from one like C of E church to another C of E church, and then they're spreading almost, well, not a completely different message, but like a different message from their previous church, and so engaging with that or integrating with that is difficult.
You can definitely sense. I mean, when you go into a church, you can sense how they are based biblically or not, whether they've started making up their own systems or whether they are following what's written in the Bible. And you'll find that a lot more churches are inviting, and you get that sense of community and love from a church that bases all of its actions off the Bible, rather than saying, okay, lots of people are coming, what can I say to them? Where the thought process should be the other way around. They should be praying to God and saying, God, what do you want me to say? Because a lot of places you can go to church and you can hear a word that you want to hear. But actually, Jesus, when there was 5,000 people following him, he turned around and said, you've got to hate your own mother, your father, your brother, your sister. And that's not to hate them as in, that's to put God above them, to put God as number one priority. And people didn't want to hear it. So they all turned around, and he was left with his disciples. And he said to them, do you want to follow me? So it's a lot of people will go to church. People will organise the church services to make you hear what you want to hear, even though it's not what God wants for that church. I know I'm waffling on a little bit.
No, that's fine. I'm just really interested in Nick's view on this, because obviously Nick comes from a different kind of church background, and I'm just wondering if he has the same experience or if it's slightly different.
Yeah, so it's difficult because there is a difference between saying what people want to hear and also a difference between what people need, and sometimes they can correlate. I wouldn't presume to know what God wants for them. That's what I would say. So although the Bible is a very good guide, I wouldn't take it word for word in many places, because in my opinion, and we can have a separate discussion about this, there are various issues of translation and points of view and context and various points like that where it's not a strict instruction manual. So in terms of turning up to a different church with a different set of beliefs, yeah, that certainly happens, and different communities have different variations and colours on the same overall themes and religion, and that's a good thing in my opinion. Like, different societies should have different points of view and different interpretations of the similar sort of source material. I worked in a chaplaincy when I was at university, and the person who replaced me came from a sort of East Indian Christian community where they sort of mixed it, their Christianity, when Christianity sort of came into their community from British missionaries and stuff, they mixed it with the religions that are already there, which were very much based around sort of God of river and God of wind and stuff. So their God, as in Jesus and God, is very much sort of in those interpretations and flavors where wind is God and rain is God and stuff, which is great. Jesus meets people where they're at. So the idea of having your own societal view of Jesus is excellent. You shouldn't have sort of one monolithic view, because that's just someone's view that's being imposed on everyone else. That would be my thought on that.
And I mean, Christianity's developed that way the whole time, hasn't it? Exactly. Each kind of new place it encounters, it fits in with the population.
Well, that's why I think there's stained glass images of the green Jack and the Green in the Notre Dame, isn't there? Which is kind of like, Jack and the Green is a very pagan kind of old school nature god. But
I think the basing communities around religion, any community needs to be based around something. You can't have a community that isn't you can't have a community that's all encompassing almost, because that's not a community, that's just everyone. Like, if even if you're all encompassing all the people in your town, all the people in your village, then you're still basing your community around geography. So you have to have a sort of a point of connection with all these people. Is there something to be said, therefore, for, like Sam, you were saying about sort of, it's almost like a purity argument. It's almost like saying sort of how, like, if you were to join a church, but you didn't quite agree with this thing or that thing, maybe you're in the wrong church. Maybe like I was curious about Nick. You said your friend found this sort of this non-religious church community almost. Was that kind of secular based, or was it specifically atheistic?
I don't really know, to be honest with you. I take your point that you said earlier, that atheism is often sort of seen as the opposition to something, so it will be hard to have a sort of community group around that. So I imagine it's more sort of humanist, as Luke was discussing. And it's interesting because you were saying, say non-religious on the census and stuff. I don't think I've ever been in a church where anyone's ever talked about atheism. We just don't care about you guys. It's fine. You're so obsessed with us, honestly.
Well, I think that's the thing. I think atheism, just in general, is misrepresented as being anti-religious, which is interesting because the term atheism is just talking about an absence of a belief in a divine being, and as Harry said earlier, that can extend to the supernatural in general. And for me, it does extend to supernatural, but not for everyone. Some atheists do have some supernatural beliefs, although that's very
So
uncommon.
do you believe in luck?
No, not in the like supernatural sense of the word luck. I don't believe in manifestation. I don't believe in that kind of thing. So, and I think that I heard someone talking about atheism. Interestingly, they said that you get if there was somebody who was a golfer and they went golfing, there's not a term for somebody who doesn't go golfing, because it's not really it's not a thing. So but atheists have kind of been forced to, people that don't believe have kind of been forced to have this label to justify their position a little bit, when actually it's just, and that's because the norm is religiosity. That's the norm, and it's like kind of like it's threaded throughout our
Historically,
society.
it has been.
Historically, yeah. So
not so much these days.
So you're an ungolfer.
I am a non-golfer. Well, I don't necessarily agree with you, Harry. There, I think that less people are. Sorry, my computer's just opening a bunch of stuff for no reason. Less people are like go to church, and less people are maybe defining themselves as Christian. But I would argue that many people still have at least a thought about what happens after death, and thinking that there probably is an afterlife, because how could there not be? And I do think that in times of distress, people turn to God a lot more often than they wouldn't. And I've seen that in people I know. So when their family members have passed away or something like that, they often will, even if it's only for a short period of time, they will turn to God. They will start praying. They will do these things in order to try and get comfort. So I think there is still an underlying current that religious is the default and atheism is the deviant position. Even if it's not like explicit.
Right. So like sort of like, people have a personal belief system, even if it's not.
Yeah, and that's the foundation of that personal belief system is Christianity. More often than not. Yeah.